What's good, everyone? It's Anderson.
Christian here.
We got our special guest,
Hey guys, I'm Kawa.
and it's going to be a really interesting episode. It's going to be all about who Kawa is and how we know him, and we're going to delve very deep into his mindset. So turn on, tune in, drop out, because we're about to enter 111. What's good, Kawa?
What
Man,
up?
I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, trust me, we're
Oh, yeah.
more excited.
And I'm also kind of worried about how deep we're going to dive into my mindset.
Oh, we're going to dive.
Yeah, we this is going to be a different style podcast for you, I'm
It's gonna be
sure.
like therapy today.
Yeah, it's also going to be delving into like the creative process, and because you're a creative person.
I am.
So, Kawa, give us a little bit, especially for the listeners out there. Who is Kawa Mawlayee?
Man, where do I start? Well, I am a long-term military vet. I did 21 years. I started out in the Marine Corps Infantry, and then after that, I jumped into Army Special Forces, and I was a Green Beret for, about 16 years ongoing. And now I own a couple companies in the defense industry. One is a firearms and tactics training company, and then the other one is more of a consulting, which is consulting not just for companies, for example, research and development for their products, but also consulting for projects like movies, TV shows, video games. I've done just about everything, I think, at this point. And so it's all that stuff that kind of keeps me busy. And then also getting a new company off the ground, a production company. Can't really say too much about that right now, but I'm super excited about that one as well. And that's kind of where all my hard work is focused as of now.
So, Kawa, can you give us a little bit about a little history about who you are, like as in terms of like your military career,
The origin story.
the origin story? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan. I was born there during the time where the Russians had invaded, and things were just really bad there. A lot of people were leaving, and my family decided that it was time for us to leave as well. And so we had those plans to leave. I don't know how deep you want me to go into that, but we had plans to leave. But what really kind of expedited that was the death of my father, who got killed in action fighting the Russians. But he wasn't fighting the Russians with the Afghan army. A lot of Afghans went AWOL from the army because there is a lot of communist influence at the time.
Okay.
And so, like, the Communist Party in Afghanistan, it kind of trickled into the military. And so a lot of people that weren't supporting that decided to go AWOL and join the Mujahideen, which were the freedom fighters, like basically the guerrilla force, or if you want to call them insurgents. They weren't really insurgents. And so when he died, that was like, we're gone, right? So we left, went to Pakistan for a little bit, waiting for our paperwork for the U.S. to get approved. And then I think we were there for like 6 or 7 months before we got approved, and then came to the States. I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska. The only reason we went there...
Wow.
I had no idea. I've known you for how long? And I had no idea you were
The only reason we went there is because my oldest uncle was already in the States as a foreign
Okay.
exchange student. And
Oh, wow.
so he was going to the University of Creighton, which is a really nice college in Omaha. But then we moved to Lincoln, and I grew up in Lincoln, went to high school there, went to college there. Once I left college, like I knew I wanted to join the military. Like, I didn't want like some 9-to-5 job. So after college, I joined the Marine Corps, and then
What did you study?
I had a business administration degree
Okay.
and then emphasis in marketing, but I also had a minor in math.
Oh, wow.
Because I sucked at math
Dude,
in high
I
school.
suck at math.
Yeah, I was so bad at math in high school that when I got to college, they were like, you should just start over. And I was like, that's a terrible idea. But honestly, the way they did it in college just made so much more sense than it does in high school,
Yeah,
you know? And so I
that's
picked it up. I was obviously a little more older, you know, and everything, so I could maybe comprehend it. But man, I learned that I love algebra.
Wow.
And I also learned that I hate trigonometry and statistics, you know, but I took them. And so I ended up with a minor in math and so, but yeah, that was that. But like the whole time I was in college, I was like, man, this isn't for me.
Okay.
I was depressed.
Oh, wow.
I also ran track. I was on a partial scholarship.
Bro, I did not know that.
Yeah, I was a sprinter. I ran the 100, 200, and 4x1 relay. So I loved it, man. I mean, it was just I just loved running, and then sprinting was just so fun. But other than that, I always had the military in my. Yeah, I think that like the military is just in my genes. I think it's just in because my entire father's side was in the military.
Right. Okay.
The Afghan military, not the U.S. military. But but then I joined the military here, Marine Corps infantry guy, 0311, did 3 deployments, and then I was like, okay, I want to do something better. Went to the Army, tried out for Special Forces, became a Green Beret. I also found out later that I was the first and only Afghan Green Beret.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That is crazy.
In Special Forces history, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is
You're
cool.
the only one.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the only one anymore.
Okay.
But I know that I'm the first.
Right.
And, I may be still the only one, but I bet, that was like, when we did that inquiry, it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's got to be at least a couple more by now.
That is so cool that you get to, that's like your notoriety that
yeah,
it
was cool. It was kind of like really, but I guess it makes sense, the way the Afghan culture is. Nobody really joins the military, at least not when I was growing up,
Right.
So it kind of made sense that Afghans wouldn't be. I mean, we come from a war-torn country. Like the history of Afghanistan is just war.
Right.
Like if they're not fighting some foreign kind of entity, they're fighting themselves because Afghanistan is so tribal. And so, nobody wants to leave Afghanistan and go join the military to fight, but that was me. I've always been the black sheep in my family. I've always kind of done things that I went against the grain, I was the first one to join the military, first one to do this and that and the other. So lots of firsts.
What did your mom think?
She hated the idea. I was going to join the military out of high school, but she threatened to disown me if I did that. And I know she was kind of joking, but she just came off so serious. She was like, all she wanted from me was to finish college, and then she was like, do whatever you want.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I'll go to college, and then I'll join the military.
Okay.
But they were against it, and the only thing that was like in my favor at the time for support was nothing was happening. This was pre 9/11.
Oh wow.
I joined the military in 2000. So there was nothing to worry about. And then like a year later, 9/11 happens, and it changes everyone's lives, and they all started freaking out, of course, just like everyone's parents did who were in the military. But I got their support eventually. I got everyone's support. It might have been after the second Iraq trip that they were like, okay, well, he's good at what he does, and everything, and he enjoys it, so we might as well support him. But yeah.
Okay, so I guess this is my question for you is when you were signing up, like what was going through your head? I mean, how old were you? Like what were you thinking? Were you like, hell yeah, I'm going to go, kick some ass, like, be like this badass? Or were you like, I've always wanted to do this. I don't know. I just have a call to do this.
Yeah, that was part of it. I always wanted to do it. I felt like it was, again, in my blood, right? But the other part of it was growing up in the U.S. Gave me this whole thought process, this whole mindset, I should say, because once I understood where we came from, why we left there, what kind of life we could have had there versus what kind of life we have in the States, I felt like this overwhelming sense of gratitude.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I felt like I should be very thankful. Yeah. Like our entire family should be very thankful because America brought us on, like took us in with open arms, and they gave us stuff that we didn't have because we didn't have a lot of money coming here, and like our quality of life just dramatically improved, and I was grateful. And so I was like, well, that makes sense. Me joining the military is a way that I can pay back. Right. It's a way that I can kind of say thank you, to the country that took us in. And, maybe not everyone sees that, or maybe not everyone can understand that. But you have to understand that, like, for a foreign family to leave their homeland and come to the U.S., you guys see how life is here. Like, we can literally do anything we want. We can be anybody we want. It's all for the taking, It's just we have to get after it. And so you don't have even 10% of those opportunities in Afghanistan. Wow. Right? Like women especially. Yeah. There's no way you could do even like half the things that I can do as a man. And that's not necessarily because of the laws. That's just because of the culture.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily because they want to oppress women, but it's it's been like that,
inundated.
Right? Yeah, it's not like you're like, oh, you're not capable of doing that. They're just saying, well, you don't normally do that. We do that.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? And so for women to want to drive or want to get a job where they can have a little bit of makeup and this and that, that was like, something that was like 1970s Afghanistan before the Russians came in.
Yeah.
Because I saw pictures of my mom and my family when they were growing up, and my mom had makeup and her hair done, and she had nice
tons
dresses.
of fashion, right?
Yeah, and like the men were wearing nice suits, and like everybody was so like stylish.
Yeah.
And then when the Russian war happened, it just blew Afghanistan back to the Stone Ages, but it also blew that mindset back. Like you always had those, like that small faction of people that were like super religious or like, no, we don't like all this modern stuff. We should go back to traditional garb and this and that. And so it became a power vacuum when Russia left. It became a power vacuum, and those people were the ones that kind of created what we call like the Taliban, and that whole mindset. And that's why it is the way it is, because there's no one to challenge that. Who is Afghan, by the way, because like they're not going to listen to America. They're not going to listen to the British. They're not going to listen to anybody. They're not even going to listen to the Middle East, who would be the closest to kind of like understand the culture. So that's why things are the way they are over there. But that's why I was so grateful to be in the U.S., where my sister can literally do whatever she wants. My mom can, go out and do whatever she wants. And so that's why when I joined the military, that was a big part of it. In my mind, I was like, this is the payback. This is like me saying thank you. And I was like, I'll do 3-4 years and then get out and go do something else.
Yeah.
But I quickly learned, especially after the invasion of Iraq in 2003, that I was good. I was good at being an infantry guy. Okay. And I liked it.
Yeah.
And there's obviously aspects of war that are very ugly, but there's also aspects of being in a war that really kind of shapes and molds you to be a better person.
Right.
And that's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed how I like completely transformed, especially coming back from that invasion. We all changed, of course. We all grew up. Like we left as boys and came back as men, but yeah, so that was the kind of that mindset that I was like, if I'm good at this and I like it, then I might as well just keep going.
How was it from a physical standpoint? Because you said you were a runner, pretty much an athlete all your life, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was very athletic growing up, and I was also very active growing up. But when I came into the Marine Corps, I mean, the Marine Corps is not that hard if you're already like in shape and you enjoy being active. But for the guys that come in, like who haven't like played sports at all, or maybe just a little bit here and there, but they're not active, like they're in decent shape or whatever, or not in shape at all, it's rough for them. It's rough because it's like shell shock to your body. But it's also shell shock to your mind because of the way boot camp is designed and everything. But also when you graduate boot camp and let's say you go to the School of Infantry, like for me, us infantry guys, they like, it's a whole new level of breaking you down and building you up, So it's a little tough, but I mean, it's not hard. And once you get to the fleet, once you get to your unit, like PT is every morning. So if you're not in shape, guess what? You're about to get in shape, right?
You're gonna learn today.
Yeah, and that's why Marines. There's that inside joke. Marines are always like infantry Marines are always so skinny because like we don't have time to go to the gym and get big because we're always running and doing some kind of stupid cardio.
Gotcha.
That's why I hate running now.
What would you say was the most challenging thing during boot camp? Because I had a friend that joined the Marines and he came back and he came to visit me and he was like, "Bro, they put us in this chamber." And they let out some kind of gas.
Oh, CS gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a check in the box that everybody has to go through. That was not hard at all. I mean, obviously, it doesn't. It's not like it hurts to breathe in CS.
Yeah.
Like once you breathe it in, it's just in your system, and you can't get it out. Then every like orifice starts to like just you're like your eyes are like tearing up, your nose is running, you're like drooling at the mouth. But that's not really that bad. It doesn't last that long. Some people freak out, but like, again, we know that it's not forever. Like we're going to, like they're not going to,
gas masks in
they're not going to, yeah, well, that's part of the thing is like you go in there and you stand against the wall, then they either pop a canister or if it's a smaller group, they just put a pill in there and that pill kind of ignites. And then, they start fanning it out and you're like, yep, I can smell it, hold your breath, and then they're like, once it's just completely like you're engulfed in the CS, that's when they're like, all right, don your masks and you got to take it out of the carrier. You got to like put the thing behind and you got to put it on you and clear it, meaning, and you put the harness on, and then you got to clear it, meaning get all the CS that's in there, get it out. And then you got to take your canteen and hook it up to your drinking tube, and then you got to demonstrate that you can drink water with your gas mask on.
So just working under pressure, basically.
Well, it's not even pressure, but it's just like, can you do it? Like, this is like level 1 stuff, right? Can you do this? And like, so when it comes to the rest of boot camp, it's not, I mean, first of all, you don't do, maybe they do now, but at least when I went into boot camp back in 2000, the CS chamber was not part of boot camp. That's like when you got to your unit. But maybe they do it now. But boot camp is not hard. Probably the hardest part of boot camp was having to deal with everybody else that's there doing the same thing as you, and all of us trying to get on the same page, because you always have like those people that are like
the laggers.
The laggers that always like, it's like, bro, please hurry up. If you don't, like, if you're not done, we're all getting smoked. And then people, like, you try to help them and everything, but like, you have to understand, these are like, this is the very first step of entering the military, so you get personalities of all kinds. I mean, I remember like there was guys that would cry themselves to sleep every night, and I'm sitting there in my bed like trying not to laugh at them. Like, I mean, initially you try to help them. Like, I mean, initially you're like, hey, bro, it's gonna be okay, man. Like, it's just, dude, the yelling, it's all like, it's part of the game.
Kyle was like, laying in bed giggling.
But I mean, it gets to that point because in the first like 3-4 weeks, people are just like, they're like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Like, and like people are crying. And I'm just like, bro, please.
Do you lose a lot of people like in boot camp? Like,
no, you can't lose. Like, you can't quit boot camp. Like, it's like a multi-step process to get kicked out of boot camp, because they're like, bro, like, seriously, like, do you need to talk to the chaplain? Like, do you need a phone call with the family? Like, what do you need? Like, this is not that hard. You know, like, you're self-inducing all this. So, but no, I mean, you can go AWOL. I remember because we were in San Diego, and Miramar Airfield is right there, right? And so the San Diego airport is also right there, and people are like, I remember stories of like people jumping the fence and running onto the flight line.
No.
Oh my God.
And like TSA would wrap them up, like, and like bring him.
We got another one.
Yeah, like bring him back, like, hey, we got one of your fucking Marine, recruits here. Like,
Kawa, what for the listeners that don't know, what does AWOL stand for?
AWOL is just basically means you're absent without leave. So absent without leave.
Okay.
Right. So you don't have permission to go anywhere, but you just decided to take it upon yourself to just take off. Yeah. Okay. And in the Army, they call it UA, which is, AWOL is, I got them switched up. But like UA in the Marine Corps means unauthorized absence, which is the same thing as AWOL in the Army. Okay. So just two different acronyms.
Because you always hear that, when you watch films or something, they're like, oh, he went AWOL. Okay, so that's what that kind of means.
But in the Marines, we say UA. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So after the Marines, when you were done, what motivated you to be like, you know what, I want more? Like, what was it that drove you to be like, what's the next step? How do I get to another tier of this? Yeah, well, so for me, I think it was just like this, my own process of going through or progressing. Mm-hmm. Because I got my first leadership billet during OF1. I was a fire team leader, which meant I was in charge of 3 other Marines, right? Mm. So there's 3 fire teams in a squad. And so I was a fire team leader with 2 other guys, and we each had 3 to 4 Marines, depending on if we had attachments or not. And so once I got a taste of leadership, I understood, like, okay, I think I'm good at this. Like, I can be very good at this. And then by the time we got to the second Iraq trip, which was Fallujah, Operation Phantom Fury in 2004, I was a squad leader by then. So I was in charge of 12 Marines, 13 with a radio operator, and then possibly a few more if we get attachments like snipers or like machine gunners, mortarmen, stuff like that. So you're in charge of all these guys, and we went into Fallujah, and that was a really big fight for everybody. That was a really brutal fight. Mm-hmm. We lost a lot of guys in the first 2 weeks. We got really bad intel. They said that there were like 600 to 800 insurgents in the city. Oh my God. And by the time, it took us 3 weeks from the northern part of Fallujah to the southern part of Fallujah, we had either killed or captured, mainly killed,
over 2,600 insurgents.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa,
And as far as U.S. troops, there's only 800 U.S. troops there between the Marines and a little bit of the Army, and then you had like some SEALs that were attached to us, and you had some Green Berets there. There was only 800 U.S.
That's such
troops
a huge
there.
offset. How do you?
It is a huge offset, but then we had helicopters, we had tanks,
Okay.
we had
all the gear.
yeah, we had F-18 Hornets that were like the best ones back then, but we had all this equipment that could give us the upper hand, but when we go door to door, those guys were hunkered down and they were ready for us, and unfortunately we lost a lot of guys that way.
Oh man.
And on top of that, 2004 was prime for IEDs.
Oh,
That's when IEDs kind of first came around. They started making these improvised explosive devices. That's what IED stands for. And they were rigging them to everything. And Fallujah was such a mess that you couldn't tell a garbage rubble from an IED,
Jeez.
So,
yeah.
but after Fallujah, I was like, I love being infantry. I really do. And even to this day, I love the Marine Corps infantry and what they do. But I wanted something more. I felt like this isn't like where I'm supposed to just stay, and I felt like I'm either going to go into the Navy side and try out for the SEALs, or I'm going to go somewhere else.
Okay.
And since we work so closely with Navy SEALs, that's what would make sense to a Marine, is just go try out to be a SEAL, go to BUDS. But after doing all my research, I found out that Green Berets have a bigger scope of work, I guess. Okay. And what we say is they have more mission sets. Okay. They are capable of doing more things in country, whether it's overt or covert. And so after doing all that research, I was like, no, I definitely want to be a Green Beret. Like, I respect the SEALs because I worked with them, and in Fallujah we had Chris Kyle's team with us.
Wow. Really?
So if you guys watched American Sniper, that was pretty much like our guys and Chris Kyle, and so Chris Kyle's team. While Chris was out doing his thing with our snipers, his team was split between my squad and my buddy Romero's squad, and they were attached to us. But since we look up to them, I would tell the chief, I was like, hey, just tell us what to do, man. Like, and he was like, no, man, you're good. Like, we're here together. Like, we're gonna, and so we came up with a system, obviously, to get stuff done. But it would have made sense if I tried out for Navy SEALs, since we work so closely. But again, man, Green Berets have a proud history, and so do Navy SEAls. Right. But like, as far as scope of work goes, Green Berets just do so much more, and that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so that was that, man. I decided that I'm going to try out for like the varsity team and go to the pros, and
Nice.
I might not make it, but I definitely knew that I was going to give it my all, trying out.
What was it like the second that you traveled outside the U.S. to go tour, your very first tour? What was going through your head when you were flying over there? Were you excited? Were you like, man, what am I doing? Or, oh, I miss my mom? Or
yeah, the first combat tour was OF1, the invasion of Iraq, and I mean, it was weird, man, because like nobody had been to combat.
Yeah.
Like not even the senior leadership, because the last conflict before that was the Gulf War, right? Desert Storm.
Desert Storm, yeah.
And so all of us were way too young for Desert Storm, and a lot of the senior leadership were, I mean, that was such a long time, So a lot of us were just all cherries, and we had been training for this since 9/11, but like we were training obviously before that, just basic stuff. But once 9/11 happened, we really kind of ramped up training and the different kind of training that we would do for Afghanistan or Iraq. We didn't know where we were going. But when we got there, it was weird because we were staged in Kuwait, like right on the border. Like you could see Iraq from where we were at. And once we got that green light to go, it was like, okay, a lot of people were scared, including myself. I was scared. I was nervous. I was anxious. Like I was going through this emotional roller coaster. I was thinking of everything like back home. I was thinking about my wife. I was thinking about my mom.
Oh, you were married at the time?
Yeah. We were newlyweds actually.
My
Yeah,
God.
we hadn't been, we were probably married like 2 years. I mean, so that was, for us being back then, that was a long time ago, and we were young. So yeah, we were still kind of like newlyweds.
Oh, wow.
But just thinking about all these people, all these things, it's like, man, am I going to make it out of here? Like, what is this going to look like? Like, how intense is it going to be?
Yeah.
You know, we were, and the good thing is we were fighting people that were in uniform. Like, we weren't fighting insurgents.
Yeah.
We were fighting the Iraqi Republican Guard. They all had green uniforms. So we knew.
It was easy to detect.
Right. It was easy to understand who's the bad guy and who is not. Versus, you know, now it's like we don't, because they all dress the same. Nobody has a uniform. But, you know, like, so it was just like, oh man, like, here we go. We're in Iraq now. Like, at what point are we going to get attacked, or when's our first firefight? How am I going to act? You know? And when that first firefight happened, it was actually an ambush. We got ambushed by the Republican Guard.
Oh wow!
And they had set up on this berm that was like a couple hundred meters off the road from where we were at, to our left, to our west. And so they just popped up over the berm and started shooting RPGs and like machine guns and AKs and everything they had at our vehicles. But we were in up-armored vehicles. We were like in these Amtraks. They're amphibious assault vehicles.
Okay.
So they're like, they go on land and water. But so, you know, you crammed like 13, 14 Marines in the back of one of these things, and we're all just sitting there like super crammed. Nobody can get comfortable. You know, it's super hot. Well, not yet, but it's going to get hot.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, oh, man, this sucks, you know. But when they started shooting at us, it was just like tink, 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 tink on the outside.
And this is this is your first combat.
This is the first combat tour, first firefight.
Oh my gosh. So while you're telling us all these events, are you visually, like, are you there? Because, you know, like, you watch movies and they always, like, the character all of a sudden is in that same moment, right?
Yeah. I'm a very visual person. I'm a visual learner, and I also visualize things that I talk about. So sometimes when I'm talking to people, I look almost kind of like past them.
Yeah.
You know, and so
seeing it.
I'll make like direct eye contact when I need to, but then when I'm like telling something, I'm visualizing it, and I can't do that while I'm looking at them. So like I'm looking almost past them, and but yeah, I mean I'm visualizing the whole thing. You know, so
what ended up happening once they started shooting back at you and you're hearing the first rounds whiz past you?
Yeah, so we're in this big convoy. I mean, we're like 30 Amtraks, maybe a couple tanks were with us. I forget what else we had with us. But they started shooting at the convoy, and it wasn't, I heard the gunfire, but it wasn't until I heard the tink, tink, tink on the outside of our vehicle that I was like, oh man, it's about to get real, right? Yeah. And so next thing we hear over the intercom is like the TC, which is the vehicle commander, is basically like talking. He's like, hey, he's giving out the 3Ds, which is direction, distance, and description. Okay. And he's telling us basically like what's happening, who they are, where they're at, how far, what direction. So he's giving that, and then next thing I know, they're like, ramp down. You know, I'm like, oh my god, the ramp down. Like,
it's gonna like open up. And
yeah. So the back of the amphibious assault, the back of the Amtrak has a ramp that comes down. It's motorized. Mm-hmm. And like you hear the locks like unlatching. It's like I'm just like, oh my god, here we go. And that was the second person from the door. And so like we've done this a million times. Like we've trained for this. And we come out of we exit the Amtrak. We immediately get down on the line and establish a base of fire. Okay. Right. So basically everyone gets online, and we like start shooting at the enemy. And then from there, once everyone's online, we start doing like these team rushes to start advancing on the enemy. And so when the ramp's coming down, my buddy Kyle is the one that's first by the door. And as the ramp comes down, it's almost coming down to the ground. Mm-hmm. And like all I see in the distance is like all these dudes on the berm like shooting at us. And I'm seeing like RPGs flying. I'm just like,
my goodness.
And it's like literally a scene from a movie, right?
Like Private Ryan.
I was going to say, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Those U-boats, or not U-boats, but the boats that open.
Scene.
Yeah. And then that's how it was. And I'm like, I see that. The next thing I know, Kyle goes down. And I'm like, oh my God, Kyle got hit. So like, I didn't have time to sit there and mess around with them, because also I was exposed. I would have my back to the Republican Guard. Mm-hmm. So I just ran past Kyle, and I did what I was trained to do. Right. I was also very scared, and so like got online, and I didn't even look back. Man, that was so weird. I didn't look back at him or anything. I was just so like engulfed in this moment. I was just so overwhelmed with what's happening, that next thing I know, it's like left side rush, and like I hear that from the squad leader. And so I get my guys, and we rush maybe 10 meters, and then we drop and we start shooting, and then everybody else kind of rushes, and we do this whole like bounding and overwatch thing where we're taking turns.
Okay.
advancing.
Okay.
You know, and so that's what I was doing, but everything was so slow motion. Like the gunshots were like, it was like a weird sound. It's not like you hear it on the range, you know, it was like this muffled sound. And like, I felt like I was moving in slow motion. And like, I would see like these little puffs of dirt hit the ground. I'm like, what is that? And I realized that there's bullets impacting
Oh my God.
like around me, and they're missing me, but they're hitting the ground. Cause I was like, it was just the first time, right?
Yeah,
Like no one's ever got shot at before.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the first time. And like, now we're on the receiving end of bullets.
Oh my God.
And so it's like, oh, those are bullets hitting, you know, and like I'm hearing these snaps, like, you know, next to my ear, and I'm like, what is that? But that's like bullets that are like close
Whizzing
enough.
past you.
Yeah, because, you know, they're kind of breaking that sound barrier.
Right.
So they're creating like this snapping sound, and like you hear that, and you're like, finally it was like, oh my God, like these guys are shooting at me. These are bullets hitting the ground. These are bullets whizzing past my head, you know, and I'm just like, dude, you know, like get your shit together.
Yeah.
How do you even control your adrenaline at that point?
You
Like,
can't.
how do you run towards fire and then try to stay composed, or like even aim to shoot?
So that's the training that's like embedded in you, right? Like, you know, there's that saying, like you fall back on your last level of training. Like even when your mind quits, your body just naturally falls back to the last level of training. It comes down to motor skill mechanics, you know? And so that's kind of what I was in, this autopilot mode where my mind was like, I felt like my mind was processing everything very slowly, but my body was doing the right thing.
Okay.
Right. That's what it felt like. And so, but you know, before I know it, like we made it to the berm, and we slowly creeped up over the berm. And what we see on the other side of the berm is this tall grass. Like it's like, I don't know, 10 feet or something like that, like really tall. And I see like Iraqi guys like running into the grass, and everyone's just shooting, you know, trying to hit whoever they can. And then we have like Cobras coming in, like Cobra helicopters coming in over us, and they're like reporting down, hey, we got these guys in the grass in the field, and they're trying to get to the other side. So then we sent like Amtraks to the other side to intercept them, you know, but they couldn't shoot or anything because obviously we're here. So then next thing I know, we're staying there for a second, and everyone's like, you know, putting fresh mags in, and the machine gunners are putting new drums in their guns and everything. And like, everyone's like getting accountability for their men. And I'm just like, where the fuck is Kyle? You know?
Oh man.
And I'm like, where the fuck is Kyle? Because Kyle was like one of my best friends, like in the time that we were in, which was not a lot, but we became very close. And so all of a sudden it dawned on me, like, where's Kyle? And so I'm like, hey, where the fuck? Like, I'm just asking, like, where's Tenderness? Like his last name. Where's Kyle? Where's Kyle? And so I finally, like, someone's like, he's over here. And he raised his hand. I'm just like, and like, when I saw him over there, and I'm like, you good, man? Like, he's like, yeah, I'm good. And I was like, and then he told me later, right? He told me later that basically when the ramp went down, it caught his gear and it took him down with it.
Oh, okay.
So that's what happened.
That's
Right? The ramp door caught his gear and he took him down because that thing's so heavy. Like, he had no way to fight it. So he just went down.
Kawa, thank God you didn't like stick around to help him like in a
probably-
weird way, because then you could have been in line of fire, right?
I mean, I was already in the line of fire.
Because you said you were
Yeah.
exposed.
Yeah,
You
we were
fully
all exposed, and so I would have helped him. I just thought he got shot, and I was like, me being a new guy and never been in combat before, I was just doing what I was trained to do. You know, it's not like now where like as a Green Beret we think outside the box and stuff like that. But yeah, that was that. So after that, next thing I know, we're about to follow these guys into this tall grassy field, and we got to on the other side, the downside of that berm on the opposite side. And next thing I hear down the line, fix bayonets. And I'm like, what? Are you guys serious right now? We're seriously about to fix bayonets, right? Like this is Vietnam or Korea, right?
Yeah.
And so we all had our bayonets, and we all had these K-bars that fixed onto our rifles. And we did. Everybody fixed bayonets. And next thing I know, I'm like creeping through this tall grass. Like, you know, like I'm hunting wabbit or whatever, you know, and I'm looking to my left and right, and there's guys, like we're about 5 meters spread out between us, and I'm looking like, okay, they're still online with me, keep going. And I'm just like waiting for somebody to like just move or any dude is weird, man. It's like a scene out of some Vietnam movie in the jungle.
So what are the tactics when you're doing something like that? Because you're making noise too as you're walking, aren't you?
Yeah, but there's so much noise already between the Amtraks, the helicopters, you know, the gunfire. There's still a lot of noise. But once we got into the grassy field, all gunfire ceased. Now we just have all these surrounding noises. But there's really no tactic other than to stay online.
Okay.
Don't get ahead of ourselves, right? Because like
Yeah.
nobody wants to get shot in the back, and I don't want to mistake a Marine for a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so everybody was just like, hey, look to your left, look to your right, stay online, and let's get through this grassy field together. You know, and so if they popped out on that side, we had Marines that were over there ready to receive them. But if they were still hiding in this field, then we were eventually going to intercept them, right?
Okay.
And every once in a while, as we're walking through this tall grassy field, we would hear shots like down the line. You know, like, oh shit, somebody just shot somebody, right? And but then we got to this grassy field, and once we got to the grassy field and I saw the amp tracks, it was like just the biggest sigh of relief. I was like, oh, those are our guys. Okay, we made
So
it.
you didn't have to use your
Bayonets.
bayonet.
Yeah, we didn't have to use our bayonets. I mean, maybe somebody did. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, all I heard is gunshots here and there. But yeah.
So what would be like the rules of engagement if you pulled up on those, the enemy, and they all surrender, or how does that work?
So the rules of engagement, I don't remember. So the rules of engagement change for every mission.
Okay.
They kind of change for every combat theater depending on what that unit is doing and who they're engaging. And so the rules of engagement for that initial invasion into Iraq, I can't remember them all, but it's basically like we're gonna give them a chance to surrender.
Oh,
like we're
okay.
not just killing people.
Right,
It's
right,
on.
right.
Like if a guy was like, hey, I give up, he's standing in front of me, like I just can't shoot him. That's a
Yeah.
war crime. So
Okay.
we would, hey, like basically like, hey, I got one. We would detain him, zip cuff him or whatever, and then we would walk him over. And at that point, they get passed off to whoever, and then wherever they go after that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that was like, look, we're fighting another military. We're not fighting insurgents
Yeah.
because under the Geneva Code or the under the oh my gosh, I'm blanking out. Anyway, under the Geneva Code, like there's definitely rules. Like,
Yeah.
like if you're fighting an actual military, then everyone kind of has to follow the rules, right?
Right.
But if you're fighting like an insurgent force, who are just basically civilians that took up arms, the rules definitely change a lot
Gotcha.
at that point.
Okay.
Like Fallujah was completely different from OIF-1.
Okay.
But yeah,
So when you were done with that mission, what was in your headspace? Like, what did you, when you sat down for chow, what were you thinking? Were you like heart still racing? Just kind of like, what was going through your headspace?
it was. I mean, adrenaline was still pumping. I was emotional because I was still scared, and I was like, "Wow, did that just happen?"
Yeah.
I mean, we're all going through the same thing,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah.
we're all just looking at each other like, "Holy shit!" Like, do we all just have our first firefight? Like,
How long
And-
did that last? Like from when like the ramps fell and then you made it to your team?
I want to say by the time we got to the other side of the field, we were probably there for an hour to an hour and a half, maybe.
Oh, okay.
That was only an hour and a half.
It
Yeah.
sounded like a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, no, we advanced on the berm fairly quickly,
Okay.
And so once we advanced on the berm, then it slowed things down because they went into the tall grassy field. But yeah, probably about an hour and a half.
Okay. But were you, like I said, so adrenaline was still kicked in? Were you guys like, I mean, how do you feel afterwards? Were you like, okay, now you kind of have a little bit of experience after being shot at. Now you know what to expect? Or were you still like, man, this is kind of like, were there other soldiers that were like, I don't want to go back out there?
Yeah, so I mean, once I can only say what I went through, but like I could imagine everybody was going through the same thing. Like, so that's what it's like, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's like to get shot at. That's what it's like to be in a firefight. Not that every firefight is like that, but finally we have an understanding of what we're going to go through,
Yeah.
right? Not just action wise with our bodies, but like in our minds, So and then your mind starts to slowly become desensitized to those psychological fears and things that affect your thinking, your not critical thinking, but your sorry guys, I'm like
Like trying to rationalize or?
your cognitive thought process,
Okay.
right? Because your cognitive thought process is basically like identifying the problem and coming up with solutions quickly.
Gotcha.
And so like your brain is starting to adapt to that. And so with every firefight, it gets easier and easier to start controlling your fears and controlling those emotions and then opening up your mind to like make smart decisions and not like bogging yourself down with anxiety or fear or whatever else. But after that first one, everybody was still amped up, and we were scared, and we were at the same time we were like hyped up,
excited,
we were like, holy crap, like
Yeah.
who did we lose?
this.
We
Yeah.
actually lost a couple people during that first initial ambush. We lost one of our Navy corpsmen, which is one of our docs. He took an RPG that never went off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because like he was told to stay in the vehicle. Our vehicles back then were not up armored; they were light skinned, which means they're just like plastic vinyl doors.
Oh.
So the RPG went through that in the Humvee, and it was because the RPG was a dud. It impaled him in the side, and he died. But the other two guys that were in there, that were told to stay there, didn't die.
Okay.
So and then we lost him that way, and we lost another guy just from AK fire or machine gun fire. But everybody else was good, and after that it was just like, how do we, if this happens again, how do we improve? Right. Just
Right.
immediately back to the military
Game
mindset of like, okay, cool. If we get ambushed again, what can we do better? And,
Right.
and what should we do? So it was just that. And through that process, you kind of get used to it a little bit.
So after your time in the Marines, and you did you signed up for the Green Beret, what was that like? What were you expected to do? What were the requirements to be a Green Beret?
So when you go to the Army and you tell them you want to become a Green Beret, you have to sign a volunteer statement that basically says, I'm volunteering to go to SFAS, which is Special Forces Assessment and Selection. We all say selection for short.
Selection? Okay.
So once you have to volunteer to go to selection, like it's not an assignment that's given to you. And you have to meet some requirements, obviously some like physical requirements, but also some other like, they do some evaluations and stuff on you to make sure that you're the type of guy that should be going to selection.
Okay.
And then that's that. But then you go to, I was in Georgia at the time, and I went to the Fort Bragg, that's where selection's is at Fort Bragg. I was there with like 400 other guys that were trying to do the same thing. And we had to do like this 8-mile ruck into Camp McCall, which is where SFAS happens.
Okay.
And so like we have like 80 pounds on our back, and we're walking for like 8-9 miles, which is not hard. It's not hard if you're in shape and everything. But everybody gets there, and they're like, "Welcome to Camp McCall. This is Special Forces Assessment Selection, where you'll be for the next 24 days. Take all instructions from the white board, which is like a white dry erase board.
Yeah.
And these are your assignments for your housing, and we were basically just staying in tents.
Oh, wow.
With like 10 or 12 other people on cots. But the first 48 hours of selection is a complete like shock and awe to your body and to your mind, really.
Yeah.
But they're just like, they just throw everything at you for the first 48 hours, because they're trying to weed out the guys that shouldn't be there.
Right.
They're trying to get them out early so they can focus on the guys that should be there.
Gotcha.
And
400 people, that's a lot.
yeah, and out of those 400 people, I think about 150 or so quit.
Oh, wow.
In the first 48 hours. People were like, yeah, this is not for me. Because we were doing things like, we would do like log PT in this tire pit, which is like these 800, 900 pound logs that is getting carried by like 7 to 8 dudes. So everyone has like roughly 100 pounds that you're sitting there trying to, and we're doing that for 4 hours.
Jeez.
So log PT for 4 hours of like putting it over your head from one shoulder to the other shoulder, curling it, like squatting with it, and then when we get tired, they make us put the log down, and we're doing flutter kicks and push-ups, and like people are like running out of the pit to go throw up, because they're like, if you throw up in my pit, you got to pick it up and put it in your pocket.
Oh.
And there's a couple guys that did. They threw up in the pit, and they're like, the cadre would be like, pick it up, put it in your pocket. And like, so people would like quickly run out, throw up, and then come back, but like people would quit. And so by the time we got done with log PT, there's only like 6 of us left on our log, and we're just like, this log is like just so heavy, and we're so smoked.
So during that, what's going through your head? Like, what are you doing to keep yourself motivated? What do you keep telling? Because like you can, I understand like the mind is a powerful thing, but when your body is like completely fatigued, what do you have? Like, how deep do you go in order to stay, doing that?
Yeah, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I brought a lot of experience with me. Like, because by the time I got to selection, I had 3 deployments.
Okay.
I was in a leadership position. Like, I knew what all that felt like,
Yeah.
and so this was just, amplified,
All right.
The pain, everything was amplified. So, and some of the best advice I got before I went to selection was from one of the Green Berets that was that worked at the SF recruiter's office, and he was like, "Look, man, the best advice I can give you is when you're there for those 24 days, don't think about tomorrow, don't think about next week or 24 days out. Think about that event that you are doing at the moment. Focus on that event and don't think about anything else. So basically take it one event at a time."
Yeah.
And then he said, also at night, take an extra 5 minutes and like massage your feet. You know, look for hot spots, look for blisters. If you have a blister, like needle and thread it, leave the thread in there at night so it can drain out. And all that, massage your feet, you know, and then he was like, obviously take comfortable boots, don't take brand new boots. And so for me, that's what I did. With my maturity and the experience that I had in the Marine Corps and those deployments, I came in with that maturity. And I also came in like one event at a time. I'm not going to quit. Because if you quit selection, you can never come back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a one shot thing.
If you quit.
Oh, if you
If
quit.
you withdraw.
Okay.
We say voluntary withdrawal, VW. So if you VW and they ask you 3 times, like, are you sure you want to quit? And you have to say it 3 times, like, yeah, I want to VW. Then they're like, all right, cool, man, put your stuff down, go over there. And that's it, you're done. But you can never come back if you VW.
Wow.
Right? Now, if you get hurt or if you make it 24 days out and you don't get selected, then they tell you, hey, work on this, work on that, come back in 6 months. Or, hey, heal up and then come back. Right? So a lot of people that quit, yeah, they're not going to get a second chance. And so for me, I knew I was like, I'm not going to quit. There's no way I'm going to quit.
Yeah, I'm
right?
here. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm going to do this. So that was it, one event at a time. And that's all I focused on was like, okay, just do this. And then whatever's after this.
Were most applicants like as experienced as you were, or like were there any like new guys who were just like, you know?
It was a mixture. It was a mixture of like brand new guys and some senior guys like myself. Senior meaning experienced guys, not senior rank or anything, but like just experienced guys that would come in. And there was some actual senior guys there, like some E6s, E7s, you know, in the Army that decided, hey, I want to try out for SF, you know, after being 8-9 years in the Army.
Did that make any kind of a difference, like in weeding out who was going to last and who wasn't?
Well, you would think so, but I think for the most part, the guys that came with experience like myself, we did well.
Yeah.
But a lot of the new guys, you know, I think they just kind of quit in their minds. And once your mind quits, your body follows, right? And so, and I mean, these are guys that are they're like big, strong looking guys, jacked, really good. Like just, they look like they're in shape. Like they look like they're just super like hard chargers. Yeah. But then like they just crumble, you know? Jeez. And on the other side of the spectrum, you saw these tiny, skinny guys that you're like, man, that guy's not going to make it. But they just push through with all the heart.
Wow.
You know, they're just in their minds. They're just like, I'm doing this just like me. I'm just like, whatever it took, whatever they said to themselves. But they're like, you know, this one kid, he was like maybe 5'4". He might have weighed like 140 pounds. Wow. You know, and I don't even know how he got the selection, but, you know, he made it all the way through the 24 days, and he got non-selected for something like land nav or something like that. But, you know, just to see him, I was like, that was motivating me. I was like, dude, this guy's like half my size, and he's pushing through. There's no way I'm quitting, you know? Yeah. And that was that. And then obviously I'm very competitive, so everything you do in selection is individually based. Oh, like there's no team events until you get to the 3rd week. And then you get to team week. Then they put you in like 10 to 12 man groups and you start doing team events. But everything before that is individual. Like you can't even talk. Like if you and I were on the road together, rucking or marching, like I can't even talk to you like, hey, Christian, how are you doing?
Because what did you do in the...
Yeah, because if an instructor, a cadre sees you, they're like, come here, you two. Like, then they put your number down. Like, yeah, Kawa and Christian were talking. Oh, great. Like, so we got a ding, right? So you can't even help people. You can't talk. But then I would look at people and I'd be like, I got to get ahead of him, you know, I got to get ahead of him, or I gotta put out. And like, but like when we were doing stuff like log PT, we were all yelling at each other like, hey man, like pick up your weight, you know, like you can see people like kind of cheating it a little bit, like especially guys in the middle. And I'm like, hey man, like lift the fucking log. Like lift the log, dude. Sorry for all the cussing. I'll try to stop.
It's cool.
And
how old were you?
I was 26 at the time, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
26. I'm 43 now. I was 26 at the time. And so I was a little bit older, but not too mature, like age-wise. There was a couple guys that were like in their, you know, early 30s and stuff. There was one guy that was like 38, and he just made the cutoff for the age, but he pushed through. Like he looked like he was old, but man, the guy was a hard charger. So there's all these different people from different backgrounds because selection is open to anybody. Like you don't have to be an infantry guy. You can be a cook. You can be a mechanic. It doesn't matter where you come from.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So they want to take people from all different backgrounds. But then you have all these different personalities you have to deal with. Team week was different because then we can talk to each other. And everything that we did 2 events a day that took all day. It was like move this 3-wheel Jeep from point A to point B. Well, point A to point B was like 10 to 12 kilometers. It's like, how do we get a 3-wheel Jeep? Mind you, this is North Carolina where everything is sand.
Oh, man.
Right? So it's like, how do we get this 3-wheel Jeep? Because it doesn't drive, it doesn't turn on. And so we're either pushing it or we're pulling it. But also we're missing a 4th wheel. So what are we doing? So it's like, okay, we have to establish a counterweight balance. And so we're putting like 2 people on this caddy corner of the Jeep so that this front part with no tire lifts up. And you got guys in the front that are pulling and guys in the back that are pushing. And then we got like one guy that's taking a break and we just rotate.
Wow.
You know, and so between that and then the second event, we were smoked, man. Every day we were smoked. But the thing about Team Week is they want to see who is calm and collected. Who is like has a cool demeanor, who's the one that is yelling and is frantic and like losing his cool. Like they want to see the personalities come out because everything up until then was just physical effort. You know, so now they're starting to see us interact with each other, and now they're like, okay, what they want is they want the gray man. They want the guy that's like, come on guys, we got this, or just stay kind of quiet, but don't be the guys like, hey, you fucking idiot, like hurry up, you know, like they don't want those type of guys. And then, I mean, it makes sense when you think about.
They want somebody that's composed under all that pressure.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, because up until that point, it sounds like that was a lot of like physical training, but like when did like the mental aspects come in of like, you know, being selected for, you know, the Green Beret?
So 24 days later when we finished selection, we got done with about 150. And then out of those 150, about 60 of us got selected. And then those 60 of us, basically, we went to airborne school, which is jump school. So we go to airborne school, and then from airborne school, we came back to start our 1.5 year to 2 year pipeline. The Q course, the qualification course, is about 1.5 to 2 years, depending on your job. And so that is physical, but also very mental. Because there's 7 phases in the Q course, including selection. Selection is like phase 1, but there's like 6 more phases.
Jeez.
And some of them are very academic, some of them are very, very physical, some of them are very tactical, and some of them are just very technical. Right? And so they're testing you in all these different ways, and it is very stressful, you know, because like you get 1 recycle in the Q course. Like if you fail something, you get one second chance. And if you mess it up on your second chance, then they kick you out. And if they kick you out, they'll give you an option like, hey, you can either come back or no, you're done, depending on how you've done overall.
And then you have to start over.
Yeah, so, you know, but we got those 60 of us that finished or got selected. We got put in with another group of selectees that was like 80. So there's about 140 of us that started our journey in the Q course. Okay. And then 1.5 years later, we graduated with 37.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so 37 of us graduated out of 800 people that tried out.
Man, that's like the best of the best.
That's something to be proud of, man.
It's tough. It was tough, but it was a good feeling once they give you that Green Beret and like they give you your Special Forces tab and you're like, hey, you're going to 5th group, and I'm like, man, I made it.
Dang, that's so crazy.
You made it till you get to your unit.
Yeah.
But then that's where the real test starts, because the Q course is a test.
Right.
Yeah.
But your unit, your team that you go to, the ODA,
they're going to test you.
They're the ones that are really going to test you. Like, hey, do we really want this guy next to us in a firefight? Like, is he ready to be on the team yet? And that's where the real test starts, is when you get to your team.
That is.
Are you seen as like the fish? Like.
Yeah, brand new guy. Yeah. You get the new guy treatment. Everybody goes through it. Take out the trash. Do this. Like, no one's nice to you. I mean, they're professional.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be like, hey, man, what's up? You know,
Nobody's friendly.
They're like, fuck you, get on my face. You know, go get your senior. Go talk to your senior, because on an ODA, so you have an 18 Alpha, that's the officer, and a 180 Alpha, that's the chief warrant officer, and then you have all the enlisted, which is the 18 Zulu is the team sergeant, and 18 Fox is the intel. But then you have 18 Bravo, that's weapons. That's what I was. I was an 18 Bravo weapons guy. But I had my senior, so I would just go to my senior for everything. I wouldn't even talk to the Zulu. I wouldn't talk to the team sergeant. I wouldn't talk to the captain. And I would barely talk to the other senior MOSs like the 18 Charlie, the Delta, the Echoes. I would talk to some of the juniors, but barely. And so everybody goes through that process. It's just a rite of passage. Like you have to kind of prove yourself in a way before people open up to you and kind of bring you in.
Gotcha. Okay, let's take a quick break.